One interesting data point you discovered I thought was kind of crazy is that high performing black employees are often even more likely to be promoted than similarly performing whites, but among those with mediocre performance, the whites tend to have an advantage in promotion. And I know not everything should be about black versus white, but this was just very interesting to me. That it's like if you're a really smart black guy, maybe like you got an advantage in the world. But if you're like amongst the mediocre, you have a huge disadvantage. Is that I mean, that's kind of fascinating, right?
It's kind of interesting. It is. We have seen it a lot in large enterprise data, but it's even true if you look at the census data. So if I were to show you, hey, what are black white gaps look like at different percentiles of the distribution? If you're at the 90th percentile, there's been a lot of convergence between blacks and whites in the last 30 or 40 years, right?
Yeah.
But if you're at the median, there's been no the black white wage
Huh.
gap at the median is the same today as it was in 1950.
Wow. So I can see why people at the median would be experiencing a world that's very different than the people at the high end.
Yes.
Because in my
Yeah.
life, I work with a lot of like super smart African American people, and if anything, everyone's even more trying to hire them, right? Because that's like the world I'm in. I can see why there'd be a political difference maybe for the median. Then they're pretty annoyed. They're living in a different world.
Well, it's funny because we were working with a very large restaurant chain, and I was trying to convince them. I think their talent, pipelines are a little broken, and they're not hiring, talented people. This is no role, and we got all these great programs, et cetera. So I applied, couldn't get an interview.
That's
so,
funny.
so yes, but there is an anecdote, which is I still can't get a job at
You still got to work at the buffet, man.
stuck at the buffet, bro.
That's that's rough. It's interesting. How politicized is this in the big companies? Because a lot of us from the outside, when we see DEI, we think like, I'll share this obnoxious thing on X where like the government's going for 4 days to party in Florida with Secret Service right now for their DEI LGBTQ thing when it's busy time and all this. It's to a lot of us, it's like this like just they're just spending money to party and it's politicized and it's silly. And like, how many of them really want meritocracy versus want something else? How should we think about that?
It's a great question. I'm not sure I know the answer, but I in my experience, um, executives really want meritocracy. They don't know how to say it in the right way, and they're trying to figure out it's more of a comms problem than it is the substance problem,
Yep.
right? And they also don't have the tools to do it, right? Because most HR analytics tools are let me connect to your systems and show you, dumb dashboards. Sorry, we're gonna get some complaints about that, but whatever. To show you, here's how many people you hired last year. Here's how many people here's the average wages or compensation, maybe. But what I think where the future is helping CEOs and COOs and CHROs really optimize talent in a serious way by using their own data, right? And not in a statistical snapshot way, but in a sophisticated ML AI type way. And that's the software we build to make that easy for them, right? Because that's you can put that on autopilot, and it can really supercharge the analytical capabilities that companies have now. And I think if CEOs understood what was possible in terms of supercharging meritocracy, I've
Mm-hmm.
never met one who said, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't want the best talent.
Well, this does seem like a very good like 2024 correction to go back to meritocracy. I think everyone wants, or not everyone, but I think the majority of our society wants to help people who are either underprivileged or make sure they're not discriminated against. But it seems like a lot of things went away from that. You're seeing a movement in tech and a lot of these companies to now embrace merit again and use that to help everyone. I want to ask what are some of the results to date? Like, what are some of the examples? Who are you working with? What can you tell us?
Well, I don't know if I can name names here, but I think
Yeah,
that
tell us
you
about some
know,
wins.
we are working with uh, corporations that range from in size from 230 employees to 700,000 global franchises, and it's all the same type of problem, which is particularly in food and bev or in hospitality or other entry level jobs. It's all about figuring out how to reduce attrition by hiring the right people, right? And most of the products out there, Joe, are all about saying, let's just hire faster. And, less friction in hiring is always a good thing. But what if we could hire faster and with higher predictive quality? And that's what we're helping companies do. So we're I like nothing more than helping innovative CEOs win,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's
And the
fun.
way you win is that you get the right people in the door. And this is not early 2000 1990s HR I'm talking about. This is using the most sophisticated analytics on the planet to be able to finally break through in an area that I think has been a real pain point for a lot of executives, which is how do I use data in a serious and sophisticated way to increase the talent available to me to reach my goals.
The talent wars have definitely gotten a lot more intense, even in the last 10 or
100%.
10 or 10 years or so.
100%.
On the food and beverage you mentioned, I know you're growing really fast in that area. Why is it useful, in particular for food and beverage? Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's as we joked at the beginning, I did have all these jobs early in life, and that is fundamentally a people business. And I talked to a food and bev CEO last week who described to me uh, year over year attrition in the 40 to 50% range. Right? If we can use analytics to get that to 25 and 30, that's a game changer for his business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And or one of the key hiring points um, for franchisees is um, how do I get the best store manager? How do I develop a talent pipeline from entry level to store manager so I don't have to go outside for that? These are all challenges we're helping people in food and bev actually solve. And so attrition is really a big problem in the food and bev industry. And what we're seeing in our algorithms is that we can really significantly reduce attrition by understanding and helping serve up really high quality people in the interview, right? Like you take big chains, some of them don't even interview 90% of the people who apply,
Hmm.
right? And so we're helping them with things like an AI interviewer to surface up talent that they might have overlooked before. But the key to our success is using a company's own data to help to and the software tools so that they can build models that the software tools do it for them, so that when someone applies, right, imagine you open up your applicant tracking system and you don't just get a name and an address, but you get an expected tenure, an expected productivity. So when you're looking to hire someone, the computers have already told you, here's how successful we think Joe will be.
To dive one level deeper into the data science there, like when you have like an expected tenure, like what's the standard deviation you're getting there? Pretty good models, and then also like what is it pulling out? What's it finding is useful for these things that you think they wouldn't use
Yeah.
otherwise? Is there an example of that?
Yeah. Um, things like um, uh, experience, education really matter, but might matter in different quantities than you might imagine. Um, and the standard error on these estimates for big companies is extremely small, right? We can make really, really fine delineations. Now, if you're a company of 40, of course, our standard errors are going to be higher. But for larger franchisees, right, you have 300 employees or medium size. We're making really, really precise estimates on the expected tenure and the expected performance of these people. And again, it doesn't overwrite the humans. I want to be very clear about that. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
overwrite the humans. But if you're only going to interview 2 or 3% of the people who apply, let us serve up to you who we think those top 2 or 3% actually are.
Is there any way to give like really short tests or certain types of questions that help you with the code analysis or help you learn more? Because people might BS their resume. Like, how do you?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes into the phase two, right? Phase one I described earlier is we take the data you already have and build models. Where it gets really fun is what you just described. When if you were operating a franchise, you and I, Joe, would come in and say, all right, like what should we ask at the time of hire? What can we experiment with that's going to have the highest predictability? Could be a short test as you described. Um, it could be that we ask, um, all sorts of other types of open-ended questions and allow people and allow AI to actually analyze the answers. Really, and that's where the fine tuning of the models to particular companies becomes a lot of fun. That's how you help people win, is because the executives have real hypotheses about the types of uh, characteristics and traits that are really successful for them. What I'm trying to get away from is these kind of corporate terms like, I want, uh, radical teammates. Like, what does that mean, right? I want the data to tell us here are the specific characteristics and traits that we had access to that are correlated with performance, and let's go double down on those things.
I love it. And you're going to learn over time and get better. I love the visual of you and I doing a food service business together. We got to figure out what kind of branded
Let's do
stuff we're
coffee,
going to
man.
sell.
$6 for flavored water. I mean, I'm all in.
Let's do it.